Hey everyone, welcome to the Protean Pulse podcast, where we bring you the insights, stories, and strategies that are shaping the future of healthcare staffing and leadership. I'm Rajee Hari, founder and CEO of healthcare staffing solution provider Protean Med, based out of the Woodlands, Texas. In every episode, we explore the ideas and leaders that drive transformation in healthcare and beyond. Today, I'm honored to be joined by Dr. Raj Ramachandran, a trusted leadership advisor, executive coach, and strategist with more than 25 years of experience guiding leaders through complexity with courage, clarity, and impact. Raj is the co director of the Physician Leadership Institute and a senior partner at WittKieffer Leadership Advisory Practice, where he helps physicians and healthcare executives become the kind of leaders who transform not only their organizations, but also the communities they serve. From C suite succession planning to developing the next generation of physician leaders to aligning executive teams for impact, Raj has been at the forefront of leadership transformation in healthcare, life sciences, higher education, and other mission driven sectors. We are thrilled to have him on the Protean Pulse today to talk about leadership, culture, and the future of healthcare. Welcome to Protean Pulse, Raj.
Thank you, Raji. And whenever I hear those introductions, I always have to say, who are you talking about? Is that me? I kind of have to flinch a bit because it seems like it's another person. But thank you for having me. I'm really excited about the conversation and just kind of sharing, what I'm seeing in the industry from the work that I get to do.
Absolutely. I feel the same way too, because we never take the time to go back and look at the journey or the road that we have traveled. So today will be a nostalgia for you. So with that, I would like to hear your journey in your career so far, where you started and where you are today.
Yeah, I'll kind of share it in maybe two or three chunks. So the first thing I would say is I actually went to school in Columbus. I went to school in Ohio and I was pre-med. I was biochem and
Go Bucks.
philosophy. Yeah, go Bucks. It was all about, football back then and still is. But, when I graduated, I really had no idea what I wanted to do. And I fell into consulting, right? So I fell into Accenture and I was doing more technology work because I always loved innovation, technology. That part was really just fun for me. So working, places like Accenture and IBM and Price Waterhouse, I got to see large scale transformation, right? But what I noticed was it wasn't just strategy. It was really about the people leading the alignment. That was really kind of the thing. And the whole question is, can you have the best of both worlds, right? And I kept noticing you could put all this technology in place, but it still didn't always work. So it was like,
Right.
wait, you have this beautiful technology and what happened? So I kept learning it was about a people challenge, right? It was more about the people issues and more about leadership challenges. So I was closet reading all these leadership books, trying to figure out what's going on. And finally I said, I got to, go deeper. So I went to grad school. I went to UPenn and I got my master's, my doctorate in leadership, specifically in a program for chief talent officers, right? And
Mm.
that really helped me kind of unlock that idea that it's people plus technology. And the last, 10, 15 years of my career, it's been working, as you said, as an executive coach, doing leadership development, programmatic work. And I was cross industry. So I worked with Microsoft and Novartis and Nike and others. And I realized, here's a full circle moment. So WittKieffer focuses
Mhm.
on healthcare. And that's what led me to the firm. So I got to, do the work that I'm doing today, working with physicians and with healthcare leaders over the last 3 years, but really kind of talking about how do you kind of bridge that gap between leadership and technology innovation.
That's interesting. So you did mention that you were with Accenture, IBM, PwC. How did that help you gain all that experience and pivot that towards your current role?
Yeah. So you'll notice as I talk to you more, I have certain adages or certain things I'll discuss. So while I was in consulting, it gave me the ability to see systems, right? How do decisions ripple across organizations? But coaching and advisory taught me to see souls, right? So it's about
Mm.
purpose and mindset. So when you combine those two perspectives, systems and souls, you really get to help leaders transform, not just what they do, but how they lead. Right? And that's where real transformation happens, right? So for me, the early in career taught me about systems and processes and technologies. But as I pivoted into the leadership side, I got to see souls and putting that together. Systems and souls is really what I love.
My God, this is like a lovely combination of systems, technology, soul, and I'm really excited for the rest of the podcast right now. This is going to be a deep discussion. People, stay tuned.
I go deep,
That
deep, real fast. Yes.
We always do that. We always have this deep
Yeah.
conversations, and I absolutely love it. So when I start talking to you, I make sure that I carve out some time so that we can really have that
Yeah.
one-on-one conversation.
Thank you. Thank
Absolutely
you.
looking forward to the rest of the podcast already. So you did mention starting your career, your UPenn life, and then how you started your career and where you are right now, right? Why do you think physician leadership is so critical in
Mm.
today's environment, especially in healthcare?
It's a good question. I mean, I think physician leadership is the heartbeat of healthcare transformation, right? So physicians sit at the intersection of science and humanity. They understand patient experience deeply, but they also influence every part of the care delivery model, right? But historically, they haven't always been equipped with leadership tools and how to navigate culture and complexity. So when you empower physicians to lead, not just clinically, but organizationally, you get to elevate both outcomes and engagement. So that's really the, again, intersections, right? So trying to help them with that transformation.
Right, right. So I always talk to physicians and say, oh, I just do my job, but my knowledge in business and in leadership is not that great. Is that like a deficiency
Mm.
in medical training that we see today?
It is. I would say it like this. It's one of the bigger challenges I see with physicians. It's tied to their identity, right? So I think the challenge is they've been trained to diagnose, to decide, to act quickly. It's often a solo endeavor, right? But it's not.
Mhm.
Leadership is the opposite. It requires you to slow down, to listen deeply, to lead through others. It's no longer about having all the answers. It's about creating an environment where answers, merge collaboratively. Right? That's a lot of shift that doctors need to have. They need to be able
Mhm.
to leverage the team, leverage more insight from across the organization. And I believe that actually can be liberating. It can actually
Mhm.
help unlock the power of physicians going forward.
So that's interesting because definitely when you're working as an independent physician versus working in a hospital system, definitely the interaction with people, the team play, the dynamics of different personalities, all that has to be harnessed. And I'm sure whatever we will go into your experience and your curriculum and what you do with leadership training, but I'm sure that is something that's going to impact current and future leaders for sure. What do you mean by this high impact healthcare leader?
Yeah, and I got to be careful. As a consultant, we use all these big words, and it's like, what does that even mean? So, thank you for kind of stopping the flow and saying, what do you mean when you say high impact? I think for me, high impact is someone who leads with purpose and presence and perspective. So, again, let me repeat. They have strong purpose, which means they can set direction. They
Mhm.
have presence, which means they're in the moment, and they have perspective, which allows them to kind of see around corners and look in the future, right? When you put those three together, you have a leader that can inspire. Right? So if you have strong purpose, you're good with presence, and you're good with perspective, you can really kind of make an impact as a healthcare leader.
Right. What do you think should be that the qualities that a physician should have to become a good leader?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, so look, there's no silver bullet to this stuff, right? I mean, there's a gazillion leadership books out there, and you can check a bunch of boxes on competencies, and we have our own framework, like every consultant firm does. I think what really matters is context. So I've kind of changed this philosophy, recently. You kind of, I think, talk about this later, but we talk about the importance of culture. I think context is actually even more important. So what I mean by that is, if you're leading, let's just say, in a healthcare system that's a turnaround system, it's very different than if it's in a growth system, right? If it's in an
Mhm.
environment that's more innovative and growth oriented, you have to lead differently. So context is everything. And I think different types of leaders survive or thrive in the context that actually works for them. So you have to really match who you are with who the organization is and where the organization is going.
Have you seen any common trait amongst the leaders that you have trained, that one trait that has made them an exemplary leader?
I mean, I don't know if this is obvious or not, Raji, but it really comes down to curiosity. It's a really, again, AI is kind of taking over everything, right? So there's a study, it's called prompt engineering, right? So it's the
Mhm.
ability to ask questions. Okay, that's actually the deciding factor. What kind of questions are you asking? How curious are you to ask the right questions? It's not the answers, it's the questions.
Right. I mean, I agree with that. Curiosity, they say curiosity kills the cat, but I think curiosity drives life in general. Without curiosity, I don't think there is any wisdom. There is no path defined for you. You'll just be a robot doing the work that you've been doing forever. So I
To be
totally
fair,
agree.
though, to the to the expression curiosity, because again, I've also learned that any strength and overused strength can become a weakness. So if you over
Mhm.
rely on curiosity and you don't balance it, so you need to balance it with execution. So you can be really curious and ask questions and be provocative, but you also need to get things done. Right. So I
Right.
think that's where curiosity can kill a cat. If you're not, have to balance the execution with the curiosity, the innovation
Right.
side. So I think both are key, but just be mindful that I think there's not enough curiosity. That's what I'm noticing in the space. We're all about, hands down, getting things done. And it's burnout. It's a big issue, but you got to
Mhm.
be able to step out and take that time back to reflect and, be curious.
Right. Right. We will be talking about the AI and burnout towards the later session of
Yeah.
the discussion today. Do you have any interesting story of any physician leader who just not only helped their team, but also the outcome of patient care, hospital success, etc.?
Well, so I'll share it, but remember, I'll share it generically because I know this is a public
I know
podcast.
you can't mention.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can't do need mention, names or titles or organizations. But what I can say is I did work with this physician leader, incredibly bright, but he had this reputation of being very intense and unapproachable. Right. So through the coaching work, we realized that their intensity came from caring. So it was actually love in disguise. It wasn't received that way. Right. So once they learned to communicate with curiosity, right, instead of control, and with caring, their team flourished. Right. So engagement scores went up, turnover dropped, patient satisfaction went up. And it reminded me that when the leader shifts their energy, everything around them shifts too. So it's really provocative or interesting to me to say, like, if they can channel that issue and work it in a different way to get understanding, wow, do they flourish?
I always felt that this is where you need a coach because they will be able to tell you where you lack and how you can shift and move towards a better rating or better
Yeah.
version of yourself, right? So I'm
So
sure.
I'll share something because this is a really great insight. So in our coaching model, we actually have a dyad coaching approach. What that means is we have physician leaders on staff, physicians, and we have executive coaches. And the physicians act as mentors, and the leadership folks are the coaches. And here's the difference:
Mm.
coaching is about providing the mirror. Mentoring is about providing the flashlight. So what I mean by that is a good mentor says, "Hey, Raj, you are speaking too fast. You need to slow down." Right? A coach will say, "Hey, what do you see? What do you notice about yourself in terms of how you're
Mm.
coming across?" So you need
Right.
both mentors and coaches, and that's what we
Right.
do in our model.
That's good. That's a very good point that you brought to me because I had one mentor, I would say, in my executive MBA program, and I just absolutely loved him because he never told me what I should do, but he asked me to look internally and find out what changes I need to bring about to become a better version of myself. So I still have the highest regards for him for showing me the mirror, as you
Yeah.
said,
Isn't
right?
that
So that.
amazing? It's amazing how effective and how you still remember that years later, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think it changed my perspective and my life in general after few sessions that I had with him. So definitely, I agree with you.
Really.
Um, so leadership in healthcare is in general related to culture. It's related to the environment in which you exist, right? How do you think that impacts in the current healthcare situation? How does it impact talent retention and leadership training?
I would say bigly, but that word is used differently. So it's big, right? So you've heard the expression "culture eats strategy for breakfast." That's the saying. But I find that people don't leave organizations; they actually leave people that drain them. So it's actually more about the people you work with. So when your
Mm.
culture supports well-being, clarity, and connection, people stay; they thrive. So it's all culture. To me, it's synonymous to hiring really good people that care, that kind of execute, that can have that vision. You need that combination. But when you have that, people will stay. But there's another expression I use. If you take a good leader and you put them into a bad environment, they can turn not so great. So I say, clean fish, dirty pond, right? So you can take a clean
Mhm.
fish, put them in a dirty pond, and they're dirty. So you need a clean fish and a clean pond. So you need both.
Do you clean the pond?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what culture is. Culture transformation work is clean the pond, right? So that
Mhm.
is the systems, the processes, creating those things that allow for good things to happen. But you also have to make sure you have clean fish or, people, because it affects both. It's not one or the other. Your environment informs the people inform the environment. You've seen this in your home front too, right? You think about, if you have a messy desk and, it's harder to, to execute. Like if you have a clean space, that you can think and have that space, it allows you to, environment matters, right? So you have to look at both, the person
Right.
and the environment.
Right. That's a difficult job that you have. I mean, cleaning the pond, making sure the fish is clean. It's a, I mean,
Well, well,
it's a
yeah, yeah,
delicate balance, right? It's a delicate balance that we're talking about.
it is. It is. You got to get the
Have you
pH level.
got into hot waters at any point because of this whole cleaning pond situation?
I think what happens is, Raji, that people don't, organizations have to have patience for that. It's not something that can happen overnight necessarily. So I'll give you a non-healthcare example just because we can talk about it, broadly. So you look at Starbucks, right? So Starbucks had a really good run, and then they were struggling in the pandemic, right? So pandemic, everything shuts down. They hire, an external CEO, really smart, McKinsey guy. He learned to be a barista. It didn't work, right? Because it just literally he was applying more that kind of strategy. We're gonna think our way out of this, and ultimately, the proof is still in the pudding. But this next guy that's come in, he's like, no, we need to make coffee again. We need to write
Mhm.
labels. I don't know if you've been to a Starbucks recently, but they write your name on it again, right? So he's trying to
Yeah.
put more of that heart back in, right, into Starbucks. I think it takes time, and it's hard, right, to make these kind of transitions. But to me, if you can mix that together, care a lot, have good strategy, and then execute, you're gonna get there. Just that's why it takes time.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough job, nevertheless. I can totally envision the whole situation that sometimes you'll have to face. So I run a staffing company, healthcare staffing company, and I can tell you that it's very rewarding when it works, but it's also a lot of challenges. So how
Absolutely.
can we help the system better prepare future leaders? How can an organization like mine, which is just staffing, helping physicians find their next career, how can we help this
Oh,
process?
I mean, Raji, you play a big role in this. I could argue we all do, but it starts with redefining leadership potential early. So instead of waiting until physicians burn out or feel stuck, we should be cultivating curiosity earlier during training, during
Mhm,
residency. Firms like yours kind of play a big role, in my opinion, to identify talent early on. And if you
mhm,
can move them from transactional to being transformational, that's how you
mhm,
create leadership change. So you have
mhm,
to help them along to, if you can almost inject some of the things I'm sharing with you and say, hey, how curious are you? Or how do you think about curiosity? Or what have you learned lately? Right?
mhm.
That kind of stuff will help because that's what we're looking for later in career. We want to know that this individual has that combination of curiosity, of ability to execute, the ability to kind of get things done. All that matters. So I think if you can do it earlier, that's better.
That's true. That's true, though, because I've never had that conversation. It has been transactional, but I definitely have to think about the transformational part of it. Thank you for bringing
Yeah.
that up.
But also think about it. I know we're all transactional in a sense, but you have a unique opportunity, especially these folks that have been geared to think, just give me the job. Just tell me what the next job is. You can pause them and say, well, why do you really want the job? Can because it's about it's almost as much as what they can do for the organization as the organization does for them, right? You have to
Mhm,
flip that script for them to say, well, what do you want to add? How do you want to use your purpose and actually make impact there versus here's the job? Just get them thinking about that stuff earlier. That's going to be helpful to all of us.
that's interesting. Definitely. Yeah, I need to mentally make that switch and remember to do that. Yes, definitely. So in healthcare, I do know that the hospital system needs to have succession planning. They need to have the executives coming through the pipeline. How does what are the some of the best practices that hospitals use for the succession planning?
So again, I'll kind of caveat like this. I work predominantly in the C-suite, right? So in the senior levels. And succession is different at each level. So early career, mid career, later in career, those pipelines change. And I think the difference is early in career, you almost anticipate high turnover. You kind of know that people are going to turn and churn and you just kind of recruit differently. When you get
Mhm,
to mid and upper, things change. And there's much more awareness of that. And part of that is because you invested so much in the individual, but it's also more expensive to replace people, at the higher levels. Right. So
mhm.
when a higher level talent leaves, it's really expensive. So we will
Expensive.
spend time thinking about succession, with the board, with the C-suite. Hey, what is your 5 year? What is your 3 year? How are you looking ahead? And I'll tell you the biggest takeaway is when we say succession, people are like, oh yeah, we do that. And they use the metaphor, in case someone gets hit by the bus or they win the lottery, right? We have a backup. I go, no, that's contingency. That's not succession, right? So they confuse succession and contingency. And then I say, what do you mean? I go, succession is actually finding the right person for the future. Okay, what you
Mhm,
have right now, contingency, which is like, hey, if something happens to, executive X, you have executive Y to step in. That's different than succession. Succession requires strategy, context, understanding what the future of the organization is, and then building those skill sets to help you think that way. It's longer term than just contingency. So that's a bigger takeaway that I think a lot of organizations confuse. Yes.
Do you
So
say,
so
okay,
it'll
these are
start
the
correct. So again, we call them success profiles, but you work with, you can do it by role, or you can do it by area, but you look at it in conjunction to the organization where it's headed. Right. So I'll give you an example. We worked with a system in the South, and they had, I mean, you'll love this. They had, I think 80 to 85% of their top 20, 30 executives were within 3 years of retirement. So and they'd been in the organization for 30, 40 years. Okay. And they hadn't talked about succession at all. Okay. And the reason was because the people had been there so long, they actually wanted to retire there. They didn't want to think about succession because they felt that was going to take their job. So we flipped it
uh
to high potential leadership development. We said, hey, you want to leave a legacy, right? You want to leave this place better. What do you think about your future legacy? Because that's going to impact you. And then they woke up and said, wow. So we developed a cohort, and we do this now, we're multiple years and it's cohort. But we talked about skill set. We talked about, what those needs are. We talked about context, and we're developing that next generation of leaders in the organization to help them migrate through the succession thought.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah. Insecurity, right?
Yeah.
Insecurity is what was driving. Yeah.
It's
Interesting.
identity too, right? If your identity is tied to your job and you're
Yeah.
saying
Yeah.
no longer, so I understand that, but you just have to give them perspective.
Right. 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 Um, what do you think is a blind spot that you commonly
Mm.
see in these executives? Is it insecurity? Is it?
No, you will love this. It's perfectionism, right? I mean, many healthcare leaders, especially physicians, they carry that internal belief that they need to be flawless, right? That's how they went to the best schools,
Uh,
best, grades. That mindset can limit collaboration, and it creates burnout, right? The truth is leadership isn't about being perfect, it's about being present, right? So that you got to move from that perfection mindset to that being present mindset. That's what I think really stifles, because you've been taught, hey, you never let them see you sweat, right? Show them that you're really good. I can give you my
mhm.
background and all that nice stuff. But we've all been through challenges. You have to talk about those things so you can stay present.
Yeah. I mean, talking about burnout, do you see a lot of it in the executive leadership or mid level or at the
Yeah.
beginning of
I
the
mean,
career?
it's getting worse right now, Raji, at this exact time frame. I know COVID, we all
Mm,
went through our versions of burnout in COVID, but the difference, I was just talking to an executive about this last week. I was in Atlanta I was running a workshop for an executive team. And here's what I noticed. In COVID, we were all in it together, right? We all kind of were stumbling the dark together. So we were calling each other, hey, what are you doing? One system would call the other. Now people are really uncertain, and they're scared to talk to people because you don't know that, the government changes going on with policies kind of influencing, different areas of the country are seeing it very differently depending on where what state you're in and where you live. So there's a lot of like just burnout is turning into a very, it's becoming more real, but it's really uneven right now. So what I'm trying to do in these conversations is try to level set. What do we mean by burnout for you? Right. Because it could be very different for you sitting in Texas than someone sitting in Oregon. Right. I mean, it's
mm.
just, that's the thing we have to be mindful of, is it's very context specific.
Yeah, it amazes me because I have conversations with physicians, and I mean, there are guys who just work for like 25 years, and they would say, "Oh, I have been working, and I studied from kindergarten forever, and then I've been working for 25 years. I'm okay with whatever money I've made. I do not want to take calls. I don't want to go on any locum assignments. I don't want to do weekends. I just want to have a 9 to 5 job." And I'm like, oh my God. I mean, you've been a cardiologist, you've been a neurologist. I mean, these are like rare
Yeah.
skill sets, right? And then you see them burn out, it just breaks my heart because this is like a resource that's
I
just
know.
sitting there collecting rust and dust. And I just, my heart just goes out because it's not fair. It's just not
No.
fair that someone who's worked all these years to just give up everything and say, you know what, I'm just better off sitting at home. Some people don't even want to do the telehealth. They're like, we
No.
don't want to see patients. We are done. And that just hurts me. I mean, have you seen anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I've had different conversations, and look, like I said, everyone's going through burnout differently. But it has been where, there's, well, two issues. One is we don't even have a pipeline to replace that, right? So the cardiologist that comes out, It's not like you've got a, five cardiologists waiting for that spot. So we have that issue. So we have a pipeline problem,
Mhm.
right? But for that individual that's saying, "Hey, peace out, I'm done," right? I've put my time in. I'm punched my card. I need to get out. What I try to help them think about differently is, let's talk about your purpose, right? Because maybe your purpose now needs to be to train the next generation, right? So maybe instead of just piecing out, we can leverage you to be a mentor, a coach, manager to help others that are going through that process. So find how do we repurpose you to help
Mhm.
cascade and multiply who you are versus, because think of it this way. What I've learned, Reggie, too, is a lot of the cause of burnout is isolation and loneliness. Okay, this is an epidemic, right? It's like we're toggled to our phones or tied to our phones, and we're losing connection with people,
Right.
right? So that's causing all kinds of ripples all the way through. So if they can find a way to give back and contribute, it's a win-win, right? So we got to repurpose that skill set for the next generation, in my opinion.
That's interesting too. I think I want to have a conversation with you because I have a list of physicians who are done, who just doesn't want to go into the clinic anymore. But as you said, they have this wealth of knowledge, wealth of experience that they can definitely try, uh, give give back to the community. So I definitely will have a conversation with you on
Well,
that.
and here's another interesting. I don't know if you went to A&M, right? I don't know if A&M does this, but Ohio State started. They got smart about this too. You know how it used to be: you graduate, and then the alumni was just, "Can you give me money?" That was the usual. "Can I give
Oh
me
no,
money?"
no.
And right, that's the usual thing. Now they're getting smart and saying, "Hey, wait a second, we're going to give you additional education opportunities." Right. So I'm actually doing one. It's funny because I did one with Pennsylvania and Ohio State, but University of Chicago reached out and they've got this program for people our age, right? That are like, hey, you know, how do you want to think about your future and what does that mean? What does the future look
Mhm.
like? And they talk about things like purpose and talk about health, taking care of your well-being. I mean, things that matter to us, right? In terms of where we are in our lives. So I think the same idea, you have to give avenues for physicians to be able to give them platforms to be able to give back. That's part of the problem. The
Right.
system doesn't give them that. We have to create more of that platform.
That's very interesting. Let's we need to talk about that
Platform.
more. Right. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So the question for you is, do you think, with all that experience that these physicians go through, do you think that personal reflection
Mm.
plays a role in leadership growth people will have, positive or negative? Are they
Yeah.
a victim of their own path, both positive and negative?
Well, okay. So if the question is tied to like how does reflection play a role, I think
Mm-hmm.
I think reflection is great when you turn to insight, right?
Mm-hmm.
So but you have to be careful because you can also, if you reflect too long, you can ruminate, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then it kind of drags you down. So it can't be, remember I said the mirror, right? So you look at your reflection long enough, you may look at your reflection long enough and say, I don't like what I see, and then I don't want to, I don't look at it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you have to be careful that it's good when reflection creates insight. It's bad when it turns into rumination. So it's just a balance. And that's why, again, coaching helps. So you're not just seeing yourself. I really love doing 360. So getting perspective from others, because I may
Mm-hmm.
think I'm great, but I have to ask my wife, my children, and everyone else, hey, how am I doing? Right. It's not just what I think, it's what others think of me too, that factor into how I reflect. So you have to pull all that into play, Mike.
Definitely. I mean, I love 360 too because I learned a lot about myself and the things that I had to change only because of 360.
Yeah,
How
blind spot.
intense. My kids gave me the worst 360, but then I learned the best from that. So, I mean, I thought I was just the driven, perfect mom. And then I realized, oh my God, I really have to
Yeah.
change. So that
I,
definitely
I'm
helped
going to
me.
tell you a story because you laugh about this. I was talking to my dad about this, right? And we're talking about what does it mean to be a great father and a great son. We're having
Mhm.
this whole discussion. It's getting pretty deep and heated. And then he says something. He goes, I know I was a great father. And I go, Dad, it's not what you think. It's what I think, right? Okay. Yeah, like, I go, it's not father is really up to me, not you. So it was so fascinating because then I realized, wait, I got to ask my children, right? Am I being a great father to you? Because it's not what I think. So it's the same problem because I may think I should win the great dad award, but it's not up to me. It's up to them. That was a huge revelation, right? Going, it's not, you have to, that's why 360 is powerful.
Yeah. Sometimes I ask these questions in the family group and they go, oh, no, this is a trap. I'm not going to answer this. I'm like, okay, that's
Yes,
that's
yes,
where you get
yes.
a time out. Yeah.
I agree.
Interesting. Thank you. And I want to shift gears and I want
Hmm.
to move a little bit into the future, right?
Hmm.
We are
Yeah.
I think healthcare is at a very it's in the fulcrum of innovation, I would say. I always see that, I have a lot of experience in the IT, almost like 15 years. And then I moved into the healthcare. What I felt was the innovation and advancement in technology, in healthcare, in IT, was just fast. It was moving quickly. We went through so much. But then when it comes to healthcare, I see a lot of holdback. I see technology coming in, but still the adoption is not there. So I want to talk a little bit about the future of healthcare and how it impacts leadership, right? First, about the leadership. Where do you see this physician leadership in 5 to 10 years?
Yeah.
Where do you
Where is
see
it
it
going?
evolving?
Well, so I'll answer that, but I want to go back to something you just said, which again, I'm fascinated by because I also came from other industries, right? I came from high tech, I came from financial services. And when I got to healthcare a couple of years ago, I was like, man, this is slow to your point. Okay. I thought we were innovative, whatever. And I made this distinction, or I got aware of this distinction. There's a difference between front office innovation and back office innovation, right?
Uh-huh,
So what healthcare has is more, I could argue, front office, which is like, hey, we got the greatest robotics and surgical tools, and we're using all this great,
uh-huh,
new technology innovation in the
right.
front office. The back office is still woefully behind, right? So you think about supply chain, it's like you've gone back to the 1980s, right? So the catch up, and this is where AI will actually make a big difference. You'll see it more in the back end than ever before because there wasn't a lot of focus on that before. I think that's the shift that you'll see. We will have more of the operations of healthcare streamlined using AI than ever before, which should help make innovation go faster.
Mm, yeah, I do agree. I mean, I when I meant technology adoption, I meant definitely the back office, because I see people still using Excels, still people not. I mean, it's mind boggling, even for physician recruitment, as from
Still
my
using,
side.
forget Excel. They're still using
Yeah,
writing
and
on
they're like, we're still going to this. We are paying huge
cost.
monthly fee to even access a physician database when it should be available for free, or at least a nominal fee. It shouldn't be a huge thing. I mean, come on. I mean, this is like, it just mind boggling for me how much money people make just selling a database of physicians who are
I know.
graduating. It
Well,
shouldn't be that.
and I know we digress with that, right? But if I go back to your physician question, I think the move that we need to see more of, it's got to move from positional power to distributed leadership, right? So it's less about hierarchy, and that's challenged because physicians are used to being, they're the kings and queens of the OR,
Mm-hmm,
right? But they have to have more of that influencing skills as you go
mm-hmm,
forward. So physicians will play a bigger role in shaping strategy and culture innovation, but it's not just going to be in care delivery. They have to influence more and be willing to work outside of that comfort zone of just working
mm-hmm,
in the OR.
mm-hmm. Yeah. And also, I think the process development and process innovation is something that needs to be streamlined as well. So, you did mention a little bit about how technology AI will play in shaping the industry, right? Can you
Yeah.
give any specific example on how it can help in the current situation?
Yeah. So again, I think the jury's still out, right? TBD, as we know, we're in the middle of this stuff. It's just crazy. Anytime we're in the middle or at the beginning, there's always chaos and there's winners and losers in anything, right? So we're still working through that. But I do know AI will continue to enhance decision making and data science. You see it using AI for all that decision, making pieces will make sense. But for emotional intelligence, I still think, it's hard right now to you replace the human with the AI, right? At
Uh-huh,
the moment we're in. That could change. But the exact moment, I still think that emotional intelligence part is still TBD for how AI will affect that. I think the data gives us knowledge, but empathy gives us meaning, right? So one of my favorite books is Man's Search for Meaning. It's Viktor Frankl. He wrote this during the Holocaust. So I think the future requires both. You need to have, a leader that knows how to use AI for data and for extraction of knowledge, but they also need to have empathy for getting meaning, right? So it's that curiosity, it's that empathy. You need both to be successful.
right. Empathy. It's like this automated answering machines, right? You call in, oh, press one, press two, press, and at what? At the end of it, you could just put me across to a customer service person, a real person,
Yeah.
not an automated recording. So I think at some point that balance has to come through.
Yeah. Well, but let me give you this is a real time tactical example. So I got one of these Aura rings. Like, everyone has
Mm-hmm,
these fitness trackers, whatever. And this one, so I got this about 3 months ago, maybe. It's awesome. It's been a game changer, tracking sleep and whatever else. But I noticed because it said at the beginning, it said, the battery should be 5 to 8 days, then you can charge it. And over time, I mean, just been 3 months, it's gone down to like, I have to recharge it. It's almost every day or every 2 days. I'm like, what
Mm.
is going on? So then, typically what we do is we'd have to go back to the store or find customer service. Well, the Aura app actually has a built-in AI function, right? So it tells you it has an AI function. So I'm going to the AI function. I say, hey, my battery seems to be off, right? What do I do? And it says, okay, can I have access to it already has access, but he goes, are you okay with me accessing your ring? And I said, sure. It says, hey, Raj, your battery's depleted too fast. Can we send you a replacement? Right. And it literally, without talking to anyone, it's sending me a replacement without I didn't talk to anyone. I did it all on the app that's native to
It's
Aura.
nice.
Okay, so that's how powerful it's getting, where it's literally saying, "Hey, sorry, your battery is going down. We will get you a new replacement. Just give us the address." And it all did it on with a touch of a button.
Like,
To your point about like these jobs getting replaced, I think we have a lot going on right now.
wow. I mean, that's definitely impressive. I wish I could have that kind of service for some of the issues that
I
I have.
know.
For example, I have a young physician who's just graduating August 2026. What's your advice for that person?
Well, what do they want to do? What's the what's their goal? Remember, context is everything. What's the goal? Do you know?
What to set a goal?
Yeah, here's what I would say. So the advice I'd give them, right? So just start with leading where you are, right? So you have to start with the current state. So as opposed to, I say the goal, but like I say, like start with now. You don't need to have the title necessarily make a difference. Every interaction counts. So if it's, hey, I'm gonna, my next patient, my next nurse, my next peer, what can I do? What can I learn from them, and how can I contribute? I said this earlier. Be curious and just try not to get overwhelmed. I mean, I know there's a lot going on, but use your curiosity to kind of keep moving forward. The advice I would be like, just start where you are and use every moment as a crucible moment to learn and to contribute. As easy
Yeah,
as hard
setting
as
a
it.
goal definitely helps for sure. I mean, without a goal, there's no way that a person can even move up the ladder. I mean, I strongly believe in setting goals. I do that every year and every month I review my goals. So that's definitely something that you know I would advise the young physicians as well. So thank you for bringing that. uh, I've noticed one big difference between the senior physicians and the youngsters who are just becoming doctors. The youngsters are adopting social media. They seem to be more present. They present reels. They talk about their burnout. They talk about their success. They talk, I mean, I just saw a physician say, hey, I have my own practice. I just went on TV and I could go and do the stuff with my kids. I'm so blessed because I'm able to do all these things. So you can do it too. So that's influencing and that's very positive. At the same time, I'm sure somebody's looking at that. Good for you. You have this life. But if I were that person, I would say, hey, learn from her. She's learning. She's creating this situation where she's able to balance it all out, and how she does it is very inspiring and very motivating, right? But at the same time, I just see these senior physicians completely shunning social media, not wanting to go up there, and they can talk about their experience. That's going to be influenced a lot of youngsters as well. What do you see? What do you see the adoption of social media by senior leaders versus the
Yeah.
rookies, if I can say that?
I mean, I'm seeing the same thing to the more or less, but this is not a new phenomena. So if you think back to, I always go back to our own metaphors. I grew up in the '80s, and the VCR was a big deal, right? Getting the
Mhm.
VCR, and the blinking light would always flash 12 o'clock, right? Whenever the clock would always go out, my dad would be like, "Raj, change the clock. Like, technology. You're the techie. I don't know this technology. So
Yeah.
the youth was the technology, right? And the older we get, and what happens is we get stuck in our ways. We get habits, right? So we get stuck in the way of, I use my computer this way. I don't want to necessarily adopt or change. What I find, the innovators, even the older ones, what they do is they reverse mentor, right? So they say, hey, I may not be the social media expert, but I'm going to talk to someone that I can learn from. So they're willing to talk to the youngsters and say, what can I learn from you? As opposed to, I'm the guy that knows everything, quote unquote. Let me learn from them and see what they're doing that I can try to apply. So even in my own case, I mean, I could argue I'm not young, I'm not old, but I'm getting older, right? So I have to look to my children.
You're
I got to look
wiser.
at and say, hey, what can I learn from you that I can apply in this scenario, right? And whatever the case may be. So I think in order to be relevant, you have to stay with the times. That's really important for any leader to be relevant, is that you have to be very contextual, but you can't let it get to you either, right? So there's a wisdom that the youngsters physicians can learn from the elders that I don't know if that's happening either, right? I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if the younger physician is saying, "Hey, I could really understand from this really whatever ex physician. What can I learn from them?" We got to do it back and forth, my opinion.
I also feel like, that's one thing that I wish can be changed is how the two generations can interact and help each other. And social media is it's just a huge platform which can help bridge this gap. And let's see how we can do that. Yeah. So I just wanted to, ask one more thing is about this tariff situation. Do you think healthcare is affected by this tariff situation? Are you hearing any whisper around your meetings on this?
We all are. It's either it's happening now or it's going to affect us down supply chain, right? So it's just a question of, how close. Think of it as like a tsunami wave, right? It's coming. It's just, are you closer to the shore or are you farther away? You're still going to get impacted by it. So think about all the back office supply chain or, think about pharmacy, right? Think about drugs. And, the funny part is, I don't know if we realize this, but the largest drug dealership are hospitals, right? I
Mm-hmm,
don't mean that in negative. They actually, the dispensary and hospitals are what supplies the medicines for,
mm-hmm.
for patients, right? So they're getting hugely affected, as the tariffs affect the big pharma, they're going to have to play differently with, with the hospital. So yes, it's affecting, anywhere you see supply chain, it's going to affect hospitals, in that supply chain, whatever that case may be. So the answer is yes.
Have you heard, are you hearing from the physician leadership on how it is impacting or what their current situation is?
Docs? I mean, this is part of what I think the docs need to have a little more awareness of this too. They're used to, I'm generalizing like mad, but they're used to getting their way, right? They're the physician. If they need, a certain treatment for a patient, they usually get what they want. When they become more business minded and more, we have to balance all these things, then they become more aware of that. So I find the doctors that are a little more aware of their ecosystem, pay more attention to it. The others are like, hey, I'm just going to do what I do. I'm just here to practice medicine, get out. They are less aware, less affected. But that's the challenge that they have because your administrators are affected. I mean,
Mhm.
when I talk to chief operating officers or COO, CEOs, they're all talking about this because it's radically changing the way they think about the business. It's a big deal.
It's interesting. So, what is the hope for future for physician leadership?
I mean, so what gives me hope, right? I mean, I love that you brought that as a question because I never want to lose hope. Right? That's the thing, so critical for our success as species in the species, right? But what gives me hope is that the rising generation of physician leaders that they're not leading from ego, but they're leading from purpose. You talked about this with the social media that the younger
Mhm.
generations that are, they're actually trying to lead more from purpose, right? And they don't seem to be chasing power as much as trying to figure out impact, right? So if they realize that I can have more impact by creating a platform in social media, that actually drives them more than, hey, look, I got this title and whatever. It's not about my fancy car or the house. It's about impact. I think I do see that in the younger generation, right? That they really are trying to search for meaning and want to make impact in their communities and with their patients.
It's interesting. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. So, I'm going to have some rapid fire questions for you.
Oh gosh. Okay, here we go. The tough
We are
ones now.
pretty much towards the end of our podcast recording. And so, I just wanted to have this quick who is Raj, right?
Okay. Okay. Oh,
Tea or
okay.
coffee?
Tea or coffee? Coffee. Definitely coffee. Black coffee.
Beer or wine?
Can I do a third option and say whiskey?
Okay. Whiskey or scotch?
I would I would actually go with I like just good old Woodford, Woodford. I love American whiskey.
Nice. Yeah. We did the whiskey trail last year. So, it
Oh, did
was
you really? Like, did you do the Kentucky bourbon
Kentucky
or you did
trail. Yeah.
whiskey? Okay, Kentucky
We did
bourbon.
the,
Gotcha.
yeah. Mountains or beaches?
That's a trick question. I just got back from Oregon. We just dropped off our son in college, and you got to see on one side is the ocean, their side is the mountains, right? So I was like, that's the ideal. The ideal is to have one side you can see the water, and the other side you see the ocean. So I want them both.
No, you need to pick one. Which one would you
I gotta
pick?
pick one. Come on, I want both. If push came to shove, I would say I'm probably more a beach person. I like the hot weather. That's why obviously in Texas, but I definitely see like having warm waters.
Chill with a book or hit the gym?
A book. I'm a reading nut job. I'm always reading. So reading podcasts. Yeah, I'd be reading.
Microsoft or Apple?
For what? For work, it's Microsoft. For pleasure, it's Apple.
There you go. There you go. So that's awesome. That's just fabulous. Had a great conversation. Thank you
Thank you.
so much. It's always a pleasure talking to you. You always, I don't know what it is about you. You've got this demeanor, which is kind of like, I got it all together. It's okay. Life goes on and I got it.
I don't have it together. That's a big. So another question that I get asked sometimes is like, what's a big misconception about you?
Mhm.
What's a misconception that people have? And I think people think I'm always high energy. Like, oh, you're Roger's always that high energy. It can be draining, right? So I need to recharge myself. So part of that is, going through a lot of challenges, right? That's the other way
Mhm.
you so that put together, I find myself, that is not me. I mean, I may come across that way sometimes, but the more I share about the chinks in the armor and the challenges I've had, the more human I become, but it's also more relatable. So yeah, I'm not, I maybe thought of put together, but I'm definitely working my way there.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Raj. I really
Mhm.
appreciate your time. I know we've been going back and forth for a while and life happens, and here we are. Finally, we got this together. So I'm really happy that we did this. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your insight experiences with us today. It means a lot. Your work reminds us that in healthcare, leadership is more than a role, it's just a responsibility to shape culture, improve patient care, and also build stronger organizations. You gave excellent examples on how all these things can come together, and what needs to be done for future in terms of curiosity, hope, and putting it all together to create this positive culture that breeds leadership, that breeds excellent healthcare for future generations, and mentoring versus coaching. So we really caught up with a lot of stuff. And for our listeners who are in the healthcare staffing industry, I really hope this conversation inspires you to think beyond just filling roles and just finding a recruitment transactional part of life, but instead think about how we can play a part in developing and supporting the leaders of tomorrow. Talk about curiosity, talk about their goals, talk about their future plans. Definitely, that's something that I would be implementing in my career as well. And if you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow the Protean Pulse podcast for more conversation with leaders who are reimagining healthcare and the future of work. Until next time, I'm Rajee Hari, and thank you, Raj, again for joining. And thanks for listening. And let's keep shaping the future of the healthcare together. Signing off from Protean Pulse. Until next time, don't miss the beat. Thank you, Raj.